Hey guys! So for today's video I wanted to do a review of one of the new palettes from Too Faced. This is their chocolate bar palette and it's part of their spring collection, and it definitely looks like a chocolate bar. It's got like the little indents like a Hershey's bar does. And the interesting thing about it is that the eyeshadows are actually made with cocoa. So the palette, all the colors have like kind of a chocolatey scent to them, which is kind of interesting. It's not something that, I mean, you don't usually see scented eyeshadows. So it's definitely interesting. So in the palette, there are 16 colors and 14 of them are smaller size, and there's two, whoops, I'm like getting this backwards. There's two here that are double size. They, one is a matte and then one is like a pinkish highlight, but we'll get into those colors. So the packaging is metal and it does have a magnetic closure, which is nice because it looks like it would be a latch, but it's not, and I like that much better. Then the inside has a mirror, and then it says chocolate bar and Too Faced and all that jazz. And the insert almost looks, where the eyeshadows are, almost looks like you'd be able to take it out. I don't want to ruin the palette, but that would actually kind of be cool. I think you can, because then you could use this as like a case for like pencils or something, because it is really cute. So let's get into all the colors. So it does come with an insert on top that's not attached to anything, but it has all of the names and such that go right over each shadow. So I'll use that as my guide today to talk about each color. So the first shade here is called Gilded Ganache, and this is just a dark brown with a little bit of a gold shimmer to it. The brown is kind of like a satin. It's not completely matte and it has a really nice texture. And the gold is pretty noticeable, but if you wanted it to really show up on your eyes, I would use something sticky as a base so that the glitter had something kind of to grab onto. The next shade is White Chocolate, and White Chocolate is a beigey matte. So this is nice that this is one of the bigger shadows here, because this is a great highlight shade and something to kind of blend out the colors into. When I applied it, it's almost exactly my skin tone, so it's not gonna kind of be like a highlighter, but it works as a brow bone shade for someone my skin tone, I guess, because it's just gonna kind of blend out any harsh edges and anything like that. The next shade is Milk Chocolate, and this shade is a satiny, cool brown. This would be a nice shade kind of to use as a transitioning color right in the crease. It's not super pigmented, but I do like that it does blend really well, and I like that it's not completely matte, but it has just that subtle satin texture so that it really does blend nicely. Alright, so then the next one we have is Black Forest Truffle, and this one is so shimmery. It's got a lot of silver glitter. It's kind of the same texture as that first shade, Gilded Ganache, and it's a kind of like a burgundy shade with all of that silver glitter in it. And so that's another color, if you really want that glitter to show up as awesome as it does in the palette, you definitely want to use a sticky base. Then the last shade on the top level here is Triple Fudge. Triple Fudge is a matte. It might have a little bit of a satin texture, but not like enough to really show up. This one I've had issues with applying. It doesn't apply as pigmented or as smoothly as I was hoping. I found that it kind of grabs. It's not as smooth as I was hoping it would be, but it is in the minority for the palette in texture not being so great. Alright, so the next shade here is Salted Caramel. Salted Caramel is mostly matte. It's a very, very warm brown, and I used it today in the crease on my eyes. It works really well as a transitioning color because it's an interesting color because it's not something that you would use, at least I wouldn't use a lot on its own, but it works really well just to place in the crease, and then if you were going to place another darker color on top of it, because it just kind of blends everything out a lot nicer than otherwise. Alright, so the next shade is Marzipan, which I don't know about anyone else, but the word marzipan always makes me think of Homestar Runner, which might be showing how old I am. But I'm always like, marzipan, marzipan. Okay, I love Homestar. Okay, so Marzipan is kind of a warm, it's super, super, super shimmery, and it's kind of a warm, pinkish, peachy shade, but it's not super vibrant, if that makes sense. It's toned down for it being a peachy pink shade, but I really do like the color, and this is, yes, this is the color I have on the lids today. Okay, next shade is Semi-Sweet. This is the same texture as Salted Caramel, Triple Fudge, Milk Chocolate, where it's that like satiny but not super satiny texture. And again, the color payoff is similar to the Triple Fudge, where it's not the color payoff, the consistency. It grabs, it's not like very smooth. Salted Caramel is super smooth though. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but that shade I really do like, and it has great texture and color payoff. So up next we have Strawberry Bonbon, which is a bright, vivid light pink. This shade is nice, and it has decent color payoff. I feel like this is a shade I would more so use on top of like a white eyeshadow base, maybe in the inner corners. This shade has okay color payoff. I feel like it's more of a color I would use maybe on top of a white eyeshadow base, like right in the inner corners, just to kind of brighten up a look, because it's not overly pigmented, but it does kind of give like a little bit of like a pink like awakeness, I guess. This is kind of a shade that I associate with like when you get those eyeliners that go on your waterline that are meant to make you look more awake. It's kind of like that shade. So the next shade is one of my favorites in the palette, and this is Candied Violet. And this shade's really cool because it's like those other ones that are super, super glittery, and it has great color payoff. So it's a deeper violet than I would have originally thought based on the name, I guess. It's almost like a muted violet, and it has goldish, pinkish shimmer, silvery shimmer. It's got kind of like multicolored micro glitter going on in it, but the color payoff is really nice, and this is a really cool shade, probably the most unique in the palette. Last for this row is Amaretto. This is a coppery, super shimmery shade. So it's not super coppery. It seems like it's like a brown that has a copper shimmer overlay, but the color is great color payoff and super, super smooth. Okay, so on to the last row, and first one we have is Hazelnut. And Hazelnut's pretty much good name for this shade. It's shimmery and frosty, and it's got great color payoff, and it's a very warm brown. And it seems to have copper micro glitter in it as well. So it's got the shimmer and the glitter. And we've got Creme Brulee, which is a shimmery gold. This is a much goldier gold than I would place. When I think of Creme Brulee, I don't think of this particular shade. I guess I think more of like a golden brown, where this is just more gold and gold. Not that that's a bad thing. The color itself has good color payoff, and I feel like I'm like on repeat with describing these shades, but they, like, a lot of them have a really nice texture and apply really nicely and blend really nicely. So I guess it's just the whole palette for the most part, but I don't agree with the name, so I'll give it that. Next one is Haute Chocolat, or however you want to pronounce it. I wish they spelled it like chocolat, like the movie, so I could be like, oh, chocolat, like I'm cool. This is almost a little bit taupey. Actually, it's more like, it reminds me of some of the shades in the Naked 3 palette, in the sense that it's a brown, but it has like a pinkish shimmer to it, like a pinkish glitter in it. It's actually a really cool color. I swatched this before, but I guess I wasn't in this lighting. I really like that. I like the pink brown kind of phenomenon going through makeup right now. It's a really neat color. Next is Cherry Cordial. This is more burgundy than the first color I was talking about that was burgundy. It's more reddish, and it's got micro glitter as well. It looks like it's like pinkish micro glitter, but this has really good color payoff. It's not as glittery as some of the other shades that I was talking about, but so the shimmer in it is definitely more subtle than the violet shade or the Black Forest Truffle shade, but it is a really neat color. So it's like it has the glitter so that the matte is a little bit easier to blend, but I do like that shade a lot. That shade I have just a little bit in the crease. And then the last shade we have is Champagne Truffle, and this is another one of those double-sized eyeshadows. This is a great texture as well, and it's just a very, very shimmery baby pink. So it's like a beige that has a little bit of shimmer in it, but it's super frosty. So this shade I wouldn't Personally, I don't like using frosty shades on the brow bone. This isn't one I would use on the brow bone. This would be a great like inner corner highlight, or just putting it right in the center of the eyes just to kind of brighten up or like make the look a little bit more dimensional. But great color payoff as well. So overall, what I'm gathering from this palette, from when I've used it and swatched it and stuff, is a lot of the shades have great color payoff, great texture, as I've mentioned a million times. There's a decent amount of different textures going on here, which is also always a nice thing. I didn't love the texture on the matte satins so much. I felt like they kind of didn't, for the most part, they didn't blend as nicely as I would have liked, and they didn't apply as smoothly as I would have liked. But other than that, I really do like the colors. I'm not a huge fan of the chocolatey smell that these have, but I've noticed that once you get over the initial, like right when you first open it, that's when it smells the strongest, and then after that, it's not really that noticeable. So it's not a huge deal. I just think it's kind of a weird feature. But other than that, I do think this is a really nice palette for spring. There's a lot of different things you can do here. Light looks, dark looks. There's not so much on the color end of the spectrum, but it is a really nice palette, and it does fit the theme of chocolate. So the price on this palette is a little bit more than I would have guessed, honestly. It's $49. On Too Faced's website, it has a 5-star rating, so I guess it's really popular. I probably wouldn't give it 5 stars. I probably would give it 4, just because there are a couple shades that I feel like need a little bit more work when you are applying them. I love the packaging. I think the concept is really cute. I think they did a good job with the actual shades keeping in line with the theme. Too Faced is really good with that, I've noticed. They're good with like keeping a theme and you being able to go, oh, okay, I understand it. Where some other brands I've noticed do a theme and you're like, what are you thinking? But I feel like the price tag is a little bit high, so there's that. But yeah, so that's about all for my review of the Chocolate Bar palette. If you've used it, let me know what you think. I will have more pictures and all that jazz on my blog, along with a couple of looks featuring the palette. Those will be up over the weekend. So there's about it. That's about it. I'll see you guys on Monday.